Welcome to the Prime Minister Reports. Stay tuned for the Prime Minister's comments on an improving economy, an increase in tourist arrivals, and his updates on the BSI situation and the proposed 9th Amendment to the Constitution.
As usual, welcome. As I'm speaking to you this evening, as we're taping this message, which gets played a couple of days after we do the actual recording, but as I am in the process now of recording the message to you, government is getting ready to make the second of the half-yearly payments on the infamous super bond tomorrow, as a matter of fact. I'm speaking to you on a Thursday evening, and tomorrow, Friday, the end of the week, we pay our $33 million on the super bond. I say this and I remind you of this not to lament the fact that we've been saddled with this huge debt, and not to lament the fact, or perhaps not only to lament the fact that all this money could be used for development purposes, for uplifting the Belizean people, except that here it is, we're caught in this trap that has been sprung and that has been left us. But I also want to say that I believe we need to give ourselves, I believe we need to give the government of Belize, and I believe we need to give the people of Belize credit for the fact that we have been able to make religiously these payments on the super bond. We are keeping our creditworthiness, we're maintaining Belize's good name, and we are making the payments because the economy of Belize is doing comparatively well. Recently, we've been hearing about slackening in global demand. We've been hearing about the possibility of what is called a double dip recession in the United States. Well, I'm here to tell you that that ain't the case in our country. I've just looked at the monthly June report of the Central Bank of Belize, and that report confirms that for the first quarter of 2011, the economy in Belize grew by a record 6.5%. While the second quarter figures are not yet in, it is already clear that growth for the second quarter will be more subdued. But this 6.5% growth in the first quarter of 2011 is absolutely phenomenal and is testament to the fact that in the middle of the global stress and strife, in the middle of the global economic hurricane, our country is doing well. I thought that sort of good news needs to be communicated because it often gets overlooked in the context of the daily difficulties that too many of our people experience. But you need to know that overall, Belize is properly positioned and we're going in the right direction. In that context, it might be useful to add that in terms of the tourism industry, or most important foreign exchange earning industry, the BTB reports that their second quarter growth, the second quarter growth for overnight tourism this year, up to June of this year, is 6.7%, a 6.7% increase over the second quarter last year. And that was contributed to by a phenomenal 19.8% spike in arrivals in the month of April of this year. Now, again, the first quarter in terms of the tourism figures was not as good as the second quarter, but my goodness, 6.7% in the second quarter means that in terms of tourism, we're going great guns. In terms of the economy, I repeat, that we are doing well, and I really thought that I needed today to impart that good news to you. In that same context, and to conclude on this aspect of things, I was also very pleased to see that both the workers at the BSI sugar factory and the cane farmers separately have indicated their in principle support for the Banco Atlantida $90 million investment. That is also good news, and since this whole business of the economy and our growth and development is of such fundamental importance, I wanted to reserve this first segment of the message to you today to, as I said, underline and confirm these good tidings. Let me start the second segment of our program this evening by saying to you what I believe I've said before, so perhaps repeating how much I appreciate these opportunities to talk directly to you, the Belizean people. And it's particularly useful as of now when we have a particular subject that has created the kind of debate that the 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill has. Now, in this debate, perhaps for understandable reasons, a lot of people have lost sight of what is the first and foremost reason for the introduction of the Belize Constitution 9th Amendment Bill. Remember always that it is so that we can enshrine ownership and control of the essential utilities in this country, light, water, telephone, in the hands of the government and people of this country. I don't think that there are very many people at all who would quarrel with this objective. In fact, I believe that the vast majority of citizens see this as noble and laudable, and in fact, one of the greatest achievements of nationalism since our independence in 1981. But other aspects of the 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill have caused a degree of controversy and have resulted in our not getting the near 100% support for the bill that I think the bill actually deserves, and that certainly the government would have liked. Well, what has happened recently in terms of the Ashcroft Alliance approaching the Caribbean Court of Justice, I believe ought to help to focus the debate more now, and ought to help to concentrate the minds of Belizeans wonderfully. And I say this for the following reason. It is clear that the Ashcroft Alliance is determined to try to regain control of Belize Telemedia Limited. That having been established, it must also be clear that the need to safeguard the new nationalist ownership of Telemedia has to be underlined. There must be an exclamation point behind it, and all of us must line up in support of what it is that government is trying to do. The CCJ made clear to the Ashcroft Alliance that any attempt to regain control of Telemedia would have to first overcome that 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill once it is passed into law. In other words, if the 9th Constitution Amendment Bill is passed into law and is upheld upon the challenge that Ashcroft will assuredly mount to it, that's going to be the end of the story. Game, set, and match to the Belizean people. We need, therefore, to ensure that we do pass the 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill. And we need to ensure that the people of this country will be rock solid in their support for that 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill. Since, though, there are these reservations, which, to some extent, the very CCJ declarations ought to have helped to quell, since the CCJ has made clear that notwithstanding the language that causes some people trouble, the proposed language in the bill that talks about ousting the jurisdiction of the court, it is, as government has always maintained, that does not mean that you can't go to court. It does not mean that any citizen, including Ashcroft, I'm not quite sure that he is a citizen, but that any person is deprived of the right to go to court. However, because I am saying now that in the context of the renewed nationalist struggle to defend what we have now regained control of and what we see as our patrimony, in the context of the need to have a completely united front in terms of our determination, government is going to be talking, apart from by way of the public consultations, to individual groupings, to particular organizations, to see if we, or to ensure rather, not to see, to ensure that we come up with a form of language, we come up with a position that will be a consensus position and that will additionally address the concerns that so many of you have expressed, and that while the CCJ ought to have, or while the pronouncements of the CCJ ought to have given a sort of quietus to, still because there is the possibility that so that you can support this thing fully, want to hear directly from government, I give you that undertaking that we will make this happen. We will make the sort of compromise possible that will then allow every single right-thinking Belizean to line up in support of the 9th Constitutional Amendment Bill, to line up in support of the nationalization of Belize Telemedia, to line up in support of the defense of the Belizean patrimony.